Numsa wants Parliament to stop the approval of the Takatso Aviation deal with SAA. Just last week, the Competition Commission provisionally approved the measure, a move the union has labelled illegitimate. Let's bring in now the spokesperson for Numsa, Phakamile, who is joining us now via Zoom, Phakamile Hlubi Majola. Phakamile, thank you so much for making time for us this afternoon. As Numsa, why are you against this deal?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you so much for having me on the show. As Numsa, we are completely opposed to this deal. To date, we still have no idea what due diligence process the Department of Public Enterprises embarked on in order to decide that Takatso was the right equity partner for SAA. When you look objectively at the facts, as far as we're concerned, apart from the fact that we are vehemently opposed to any kind of equity partner, but if we have to look at the facts, Takatso is not the right equity partner for this deal. And for us, we are deeply concerned that even Parliament does not seem concerned at all that this deal is going ahead, and they're not doing their work in ensuring that Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan is held to account for this deal.
How do you want Parliament to intervene? Because they don't have the authority to stop the deal.
Of course they have the authority to stop the deal. This is a state-owned entity. SAA exists because of an act of Parliament, and they have a duty to intervene and to ensure that this deal is done correctly. First and foremost, Takatso has no capital. Where in the world have you heard of a company being granted the right to play the role of shareholder when they have no capital? There is, and that is one of the problems that we have. Secondly, the process of appointing Takatso, if it had been a transparent process, it should have been a process which was open to the public, where we see who are all the players in the who are bidding for this opportunity. We should have known, for example, what were the basic requirements that DPE was looking for when they were looking for an equity partner. We don't know any of those things. What we know is that Takatso is owned by a company called Harris. They own the greatest shareholding of Takatso. And who is the executive of Harris? None other than Jabu Moleketi, who's the former finance minister and former MEC of finance in Gauteng. So basically, we've got an SOE that's been grossly undervalued, that's been handed over to friends of the ANC for nothing. That should concern all of us greatly. And we are quite shocked as Numsa that this deal is going ahead and barely anyone is raising questions, least of all the Competition Commission.
What are you aware of when it comes to the due diligence that's still being done before the deal is concluded? Do you have any idea how far that due diligence process is and how Takatso also came to be appointed? I was asking earlier about authority because, often when you are asking Parliament to intervene in a particular way, they'll tell you it's our responsibility to provide oversight over the executive, but there's separation of powers. And what Scopa can do is bring them, ask them critical questions about how far that process is, but they are going to struggle to say, this is what you must do now as SAA.
Well, we've written to the Portfolio Committee of Public Enterprises because it is their duty to ask those questions. It is their duty to get answers about the due diligence process. We know that Pravin Gordhan has said to Scopa in the past that he will only give answers on the due diligence process at the end of the transaction. That is not good enough. There should have been questions asked from the very beginning. This is not Pravin Gordhan's family business. This is a state-owned entity paid for by taxes. And we have every right to know from the start of the process who was involved, who were the potential bidders, what was the standard or the requirement that DPE was looking for. And we had the right as the public to be engaged even on whether SAA should have been privatized in the first place. None of those processes have been followed. We are now nearing almost the end of the process. And even now, Parliament and even the Parliamentary Committee on Public Enterprises have not asked any questions. And again, the fact that you've got an entity that has no capital to begin with, that is now being allowed to take over SAA is dubious at best. And this is why we say this deal is a corrupt deal.
Yeah.
The other reason that gives us serious cause for concern is the fact that you have here a situation where this airline has been grossly undervalued. The last financial statement said that SAA was valued at 14 billion. We found out later that Takatso did their own valuation and decided that it was valued at 3 billion. It is our view and our fear that because Takatso doesn't have so much as a red cent, that as soon as they take over, the first thing they're going to do is there will be a flash sale of SAA's assets so that they can fund the airline. Because right now, as we speak, Takatso has no funding in order to actually carry through this deal. And again, that should make everybody deeply concerned.
Yeah, and of course, Takatso have been saying we are going to make sure that 3 billion will be available as soon as this due diligence process is done. Phakamile,
confident of that? What makes anyone confident that Takatso can raise that money? As we said, in every other deal, any deal that would make sense on paper, you must first have proof of capital. Takatso has no proof of capital, so why should we have any faith that they'll be able to raise those monies, except unless if their plan is to sell off SAA assets?
Yeah. So government has proven time and again that it's not capable of running this airline efficiently. You look at the last 10 years, for instance, and the bailouts the airline has been getting. There are those who will argue bringing in this private equity partner, whether it's Takatso or any other equity partner, is possibly the only way this airline can operate effectively.
Well, for us to be absolutely sure of that, we'd need the financials. And what we know is that based on the performance of the airline has actually made a profit. This is according to the board members who were ousted, and it was also confirmed by the current interim board chairperson of SAA, who said that he has seen the financials. Derek Hanekom has said he has seen the financials. He can confirm that SAA is making a profit, which again begs the question as to why are we rushing this deal when SAA is already showing that it doesn't need an equity partner. It's perfectly capable of making a profit. This is why we're saying that until Parliament does its job of playing watchdog and asking the questions that need to be asked, we can assume that this is corruption. Because first and foremost, you have a process that was completely shrouded in secrecy. You have a minister who doesn't want to account in terms of due diligence. And the fact that an entire airline, which at some point was worth 14 billion, has now been sold, according to media reports, for 51 rand. At the very least, we need an in-depth investigation into this entire transaction. You cannot have a situation where this airline is handed over to these shareholders and we still don't know all the facts.
All right, Phakamile Hlubi Majola, Numsa spokesperson, thank you for making time for us.